We knew we had to do something. The way that long videos were now going to get promoted by YouTube and ours were really short meant that it wasn't looking that bright and rosy for the future of our channel. So that's when we thought about podcasts. And really the first place that you've got to start when it comes to creating a video podcast for YouTube is planning. It really is all in the planning. And the first step is working out what the show is going to be about, what the title is, what's the content that you need to produce. So we use tools like Ubersuggest, which is great when you've got an idea, you type in your title and it shows you how popular it might be online, and Google Trends and Google AdWords Keyword Planner, and you can get a great idea using these tools just if that topic is going to go down well as a search term, if people are interested in it. So that's usually where we start first. Once you've done your research and you've worked at the topic and you think you've got a title that is going to resonate and people are going to want to watch, then you need to plan the show.
But here's the thing, even when we're thinking about it, it's still like, this is going to waste some time. We have to admit, you're gaming the system a little bit here.
We're trying to waste time.
We're trying to waste time.
I'm trying to think of the average video I watch.
Make it valuable. And
So
that's really hard.
So simple as anything, we just get a Google Doc open and we bullet point it. We'll start with the intro, usually then followed by the problem that the podcast might solve, and then move into the solution. But the key point is it's not written out word for word, it's just planned in bullet points. And then when we're on the show, we can present them out nicely. So this is where you need to do a bit of research. You need to find ways of making that content maybe more interesting, find stories. If you can try and find games or other ways of making the information you give people grip them. Because if you're trying to make a 20-minute long video, it's tough to keep people interested.
Although you're primarily making a podcast that's going to be on YouTube, i.e. it's a visual experience, you can almost forget about the visuals if you don't have amazing sound. So it is first and foremost an audio experience. Then think about what the frame looks like. You've got to get into that frame all the things that an audience will tolerate if they do actually watch instead of just listening to 20 minutes worth of footage. You know, does it reveal something about the world that you're in? In our case, it was, we've got an on-air sign and we've got sound baffles because we're in production, so that fits. So think about those things. The film industry calls that mise-en-scene. At the very minimum, if you're going to use, say, your laptop camera, make sure you get it at or above your eye line. The most off-putting thing I've seen in podcasts, even when the sound was great, was that I was below someone's nose. You're just looking up their nose. That can't be good for 20 minutes. The last thing you want when you get to recording is too many unplanned sequences. So do a test run. Go through the ideas. Now, you might be on your own, but go through them yourself. Read it out loud. Talk about the issues. See what comes to mind while you're going through the content. Make notes of it if you need, but at least have things that you're going to come to so that you're not caught on the spot. So take your time. This might take 20 minutes. It might take the full time that it would take for the podcast to do it all as a dry run. It's worth it. Stay really focused. I mean, you can't mess about.
Get out! Out! Anyway, that wasn't Walken, that was a Schwarzenegger.
That was Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, sorry, you went Walken. Yo! Tell me, why do you think longer videos will be a problem?
That's quite good. Stay serious. As a small creator, you're probably not necessarily going to start with two C100s. We have this kit because we're in production, so I think if we don't use it and be seen to use it well, then kind of not really advertising ourselves very well. So we kind of have to, but you necessarily don't. Could just have that laptop or that phone to start with, but make sure you get a professional plug-in that goes from your phone or tablet to a professional mic of some sort for a podcast. The mics that we're using are condenser mics from Rode. They're not that expensive, but they're certainly not the cheapest. Got some coloured lights in the background just to dress it up. You got to paint with the light, make the foreground pop a little bit.
I mean, is it even a YouTube video if it doesn't have a small plant? They are key to pretty much every video. That's our top production tip, maybe ever, actually. Let's put it down. So, you filmed it, you've planned it, you've dress rehearsaled it, you've got to edit it. Now, for our show in particular, because we've got a couple of cameras going on and a couple of mics, it means multi-tracking videos in the edit and then syncing the sound. And I'm not gonna lie, it is a complete nightmare sometimes. So what we've noticed is with these condenser mics, if you've got 2 people on the show, try and get them facing opposite. And try and not getting them too loud because the echo picks up. And when you're in the edit and you're having to cut and change everyone's sound every time they speak a little bit to adjust to that, it can be a total nightmare. So we use Final Cut Pro. You may or may not like that. I'm not here to argue about it, but it's quick. And you can multicam clips quite easy. You put them in, the sound syncs together. And technically, it should be a very smooth edit and one that shouldn't take that long. But I have found myself spending 3 days on one before, which for someone who edits for a living full time is a very long time. If you're not used to editing, it's probably the equivalent of about a month. So editing is not just about using software. Editing is kind of editing, which sounds weird, but it's almost a journalistic approach to it. It's looking at it and going, is that information really that important? If you think you're getting repetitive or there's something popping up, you've got to make that call and go, get rid of that information. It's not adding anything to it. And sometimes you might spend the whole time editing it thinking that's great, and at the end of it realize, you know what? That can go. And when you cut these things out that sometimes you think work, and then you hit play and watch it back, that's when it actually works. You should spend about the same time on your promotion as you did on planning and actually creating the podcast itself. Now, if you only spent 5 minutes on your podcast, don't spend 5 minutes promoting it. Probably just don't promote it at all because it will suck. But if you spent a good amount of time on it, you need to get eyeballs on it. And it's not enough just to let YouTube show your subscribers. They need to show a small amount of people. So you need to create some trailers. Think about Facebook. Think about Facebook groups online. Think about Twitter. Think about Instagram. And we'd advise cutting your trailers into 1080 by 1080 squares in the edit. Get some subtitles in there, a title at the top. Get it out and try and drive people back to your YouTube channel. You can, if you've got a massive following, just rely on YouTube to try and, show it to the right people. But those 48 hours, those first 48 hours are crucial in your promotion. So you really need to make sure that thumbnail is rocking, really sticks out, the title works for search terms, and that you push it out. If you've got an email list, get it out to them. They'll watch it for the longest. And what we tend to find is, if we put anything out to our email list before anyone else, the viewers will stick around for almost 80% of the video, which is massive on YouTube, and that will give it that first initial hit. Now, they might not be quite as long for a podcast, but Facebook, your regular followers who aren't just on YouTube, you've got to get out to them and then try and push it out to groups and more, and just keep promoting that bad boy. Get it out on Quora if it answers questions. Get it on Reddit, show your mum, show your dad, show your friends. Tie it to a carrier pigeon's foot and fire it to the moon for the Martians. They'll be on Mars though, wouldn't they?